Okay, we're all set to go. Thank you.
Okay, thanks everyone for their attendance here today. I'd like to call this committee meeting to order. I'd ask for any declaration of pecuniary interest or nature thereof. Seeing none, thank you. Minutes of the last previous meeting. Committee of Adjustment from 22nd of September 2020, draft minutes. Can I have a mover that the resolution that the Committee of the Adjustment does hereby approve the minutes of the Committee of the Adjustment meeting held on September 22nd, 2020, as per presented? A mover and a seconder, please. Barry, Tracy. Any questions on those minutes? Val?
Mr. Chair?
Yes, sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Within the agenda from that time frame, under number 5 under business, we appointed you as the chair for the 2020 committee. It has a very specific date in there. Leanne, do we need to make note of that or adjust that? Or do we need a new piece of business to make Mr. Wiggins the chair for this year? Or do we make him chair for our term? Or that's a fairly specific date in there. So should we be addressing that at some point? Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Looking for direction, Leanne?
Through you, Mr. Wiggins, to Robin, how would you like to handle that?
Yes, I apologize. That was an oversight on my part. We could do an election prior to hearing the business. I believe the clerk then would be calling the meeting to order and electing, and then doing the election, if I'm.
This committee doesn't sit very often, and we sit with a separate terms of reference than our normal procedural bylaws. So we just want to make sure that we're doing this right. Thank you, everybody, for your patience.
Thank you.
Yeah, so an inaugural meeting of the Committee of Adjustment shall be called by the clerk of the municipality following the appointment of the committee by council. Council, being that members of council sit as the Committee of Adjustment, they are appointed annually, which was done in January of this year. So at the inaugural meeting, members of the committee shall elect one of themselves as the chair. The election of the chair of the committee shall be presided over by the clerk of the municipality. And at the inaugural meeting of the committee, they shall appoint an employee of the municipality as the secretary treasurer.
Okay, what does that all mean?
So what I will require then is I'm going to do this in two parts. The first is if I have, I understand that we would like Mr. Wiggins to sit again as chair of this committee. So I'd like to call for an election to the same. A show of hands for members of the committee that they would like to see again, Councillor Wayne Wiggins appointed as chair of the Committee of Adjustment. Anyone against? Seeing none, congratulations.
Thank you.
And then if I could have one of the members of the committee put forth a resolution appointing Robin Tate as the secretary of the Committee of Adjustment, that would be appreciated.
Tracy. Oh, sorry.
No, you're chair now, so go ahead.
Oh, okay. Tracy and Val. Excuse me for using your first names.
No, go ahead, Tracy.
You're muted, Trace.
All right, I would like to appoint Robin Tate as the staff to do, sorry, I'm just thinking of the wording on that.
A secretary treasurer.
Secretary treasurer, yep, perfect.
Second.
Yep. We have a motion by Tracy, seconded by Val. All in favor? Thank you. Congratulations, Robin.
Thank you, Chairman Wiggins.
Chair.
What if she doesn't want the job?
All right, so now we'll carry on to the, do we approve the minutes as, did we do that yet, Val? Or,
No. No,
yeah,
I think we had our motions. Now we have to vote on it, I think.
yes. All in favor of the minutes, motion? Thank you, carried. Okay, looking for calls for deferrals and or withdrawals. Anything there, Robin?
I have not received any call for deferrals or withdrawals, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Okay, the business, A, application for a number MV 002-2020. P and J Wagner, legal description part lot 19, register compile plans 2198, 6, pardon me, town of Bancroft, Hastings County. Being part 2, plan 21R 8576, being a vacant lot on Maple Street.
Excuse me, Mr. Chair,
Yes,
can you move I can't hear you very well.
okay. How's that? Is that
That's
better?
much better.
Okay, sorry. I was trying to fake it there a little bit, buddy.
Yeah, okay, not a problem.
Okay, we have a draft resolution that the Committee of Adjustment does hereby approve the minor variance applicant MV 002-2020 to reduce the minimum front yard setback from 7.5 meters to 3.05 meters, subject to the conditions as determined by the committee. Do I have a mover and a seconder for that motion? Mayor and Val. Okay, we'll open it to any discussions here. I'd like our planner, Robin, would you speak to this?
Certainly, Mr. Chairman. So on September 22nd, the committee heard a minor variant or received a deferral for the minor variance application 001-2020. The deferral was requested to address off-street parking provisions. As per section 3.25.3 of the zoning bylaw, the minimum parking space requirements in a residential zone are 2 spaces for every dwelling unit. In the previous report that was presented by myself and with input from the county senior planner, there was a concern that off-street parking could not be addressed. In discussions with the applicant and the county planner, it was confirmed that the required off-street parking of 2 spaces is to be provided within the attached garage of the proposed single detached dwelling. So staff are recommending to approve of the request to reduce the minimum front yard setback from 7.5 meters to 3.05 meters. Staff have noted that in the neighborhood that it appears a number of the dwellings were constructed closer to the municipal road allowance than in the past, which would have been permitted. And it does look like a number of driveways are probably within the municipal road allowance. Though in talking to the manager of public works, those people who may be parking on their driveways, which are in the municipal road allowance, it's not causing any concerns with any winter maintenance activities. Just wanted to clarify that. So like, as I said, the setback, staff are recommending that the request to reduce the setback be approved. So there are 4 tests that one must satisfy to approve a minor variance. Minor variance must meet the general intent of the official plan. The property is designated as urban residential in Part B of the Hastings County official plan. This land use designation has been applied to existing established neighborhoods as well as future residential development areas in the town of Bancroft. The residential areas are low and medium density developments, with low density being comprised of primarily single detached dwellings, semi-detached dwellings, and duplex dwellings. The urban residential land use policies also encourage new development in the form of intensification and infilling of existing serviced vacant lots, which in this case, this is currently a vacant lot. The proposed development of a single detached dwelling on Maple Street does satisfy this policy. The type of structure is consistent with the surrounding land uses and in the opinion of staff, in conformity with the intent and purpose of the official plan. The second test, a minor variance must also satisfy the general intent of the zoning bylaw. The subject property is zone residential type 1 zone in the zoning bylaw, and the applicant is requesting permission to reduce the required setback from 7.5 meters to 3.05 meters, which is a variance of 4.45 meters in order to facilitate the construction of a single detached dwelling. The purpose of the 7-meter setback is to ensure adequate space between the front lot line and the face of the building to provide parking in compliance with the zoning bylaw. As previously mentioned, off-street parking is to be provided within the attached garage of the proposed single detached dwelling. It's also noted that there are some constraints of the property due to the slope of the property, which is the reason why the applicants are asking for the reduction. In this regard, the reduction of the front yard setback meets the general intent and purpose of the zoning bylaw. Test number 3, the requested variance must be considered minor in nature. This application applies only to the subject's lands and is a reflection of the site-specific constraints and lot configuration. The variance is considered minor as there are no anticipated negative off-site impacts. Test number 4, the requested variance must be desirable for the development of the land, building, or structure. The minor variance to the required front yard setback will result in infilling that is compatible with the existing land uses. Therefore, the proposed variance is appropriate and desirable for the development and use of the land. Notice was provided to the requirements of the Planning Act. Everyone within 60 meters of the subject property received a notice, and notice was also posted on the property. At this time, no public comments in support or opposition have been received. And the subject lands are not subject to any other type of development applications under the Planning Act. So I'd be happy to take any questions at this time from members of the committee.
Any questions from anybody on the committee at this time? Is the applicant here? Would they care to speak at this time?
Peter and Jerry Wagner are here, and if they have any additional information they would like to provide, they may.
No, thank you. We appreciate the support that we got. It was a long haul, but in the end, we're happy. We're happy. Thank you.
Thank you for speaking. Is there any questions from the public at large out here? Verbal submissions, for or against? Hearing none. Do we have any written support or for or against?
No, Mr. Chairman, we have not received any written submissions in support or opposition of the proposed minor variance application.
Okay, thank you. At this time, then, I would call for a vote on this resolution that we allow it. All in favor, please? Carried. Thank you. Item B, application MV 001-2021. Application S Pitts, Civic address Bridge Street, 158 Bridge Street. Legal description, part lot 12, plan 953, part 2, plan R21R 5307, town of Bancroft. Be it resolved that the Committee of Adjustment does hereby approve the minor variance application MV 001-2021 to reduce the minimum interior side yard setback from 2 meters to 1.2 meters, subject to the conditions as to be determined by this committee. Can I have a mover and a seconder, please? Barry and Andra. At this time, I turn it back to our planner, Robin Tate.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The applicant is Stacy Pitts, and it is for the property municipally known as 158 Bridge Street West. The subject lands are designated urban residential in Part B of the Hastings County official plan and are zoned residential type 1 zone. The subject property is approximately 957.7 square meters in area, with approximately 30.5 meters of frontage on Bridge Street West, and is built out with a single detached dwelling and an attached garage. The applicant is proposing to enlarge the existing attached garage by 54.25 square meters. The applicant is proposing, therefore, to reduce the minimum interior side yard from 2 meters to 1.2 meters, which is a variance of 0.8 meters. So as we apply the 4 tests, the requested variance must be considered minor in nature. The application is considered minor in nature as there are not any anticipated negative offsite impacts. The requested variance must be desirable for the development of the land, building, or structure. The proposed variance is appropriate and compatible with the adjacent existing land uses. The requested variance must satisfy the general intent of the official plan. The subject property, as I mentioned, is designated urban residential in Part B, which recognizes residential areas of low and medium density developments with primarily single detached dwellings, semi-detached dwellings, and duplex dwellings. This type of structure is consistent with the surrounding land uses and in conformity with the intent and purpose of the official plan. The subject property is zoned residential type 1. The applicant is requesting to reduce the minimum interior side yard setback from 2 meters to 1.2 meters, which is a variance of 8 meters, in order to facilitate the construction of an addition to the existing attached garage. Being that the lands are fully serviced, there's no requirement to access the backyard to service a private septic. I believe the reduction in the interior side yard meets the general intent and purpose of the zoning bylaw. Notice was given to property owners within 60 meters of the subject property, 10 days in advance of the meeting, and notice was also posted on the property. At this time, no public comments have been received by the Secretary Treasurer, and the subject lands are not subject to any other type of development application under the Planning Act. That concludes my report. If any of the members of the committee have any questions.
Seeing none.
Andre has a question.
Oh, sorry. Oh, sorry. Sorry.
Hi, Robin. Thank you for your report. I have a question with regard to the proximity of the proposed garage adjacent to the home right next door. The aerial map is helpful, but it's rudimentary at best. Can you tell me what the separation would be between those two buildings if we do allow the building to move closer to the lot line than we would typically allow?
So I believe if, depending upon the building on that side, when it was constructed, it also should have been constructed with a 2-meter setback. So basically you would have the 2 meters plus the 1.2, which the applicant is proposing to reduce to. You might note on the site plan that's been submitted that there is an existing shed in that side yard, quite close to that existing property line as well.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Would the applicants like to speak at this time?
We're good for now, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Is there any questions from the public that might be attending? Seeing none, do we have any verbal or written submissions from the public?
No written submissions were received, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Okay, at this time, I'll call on a vote for the motion. All in favor, please. Carried. Thank you. Okay, item number C, application MV0022021, application M. McDonald, Civic address 19 Pine Ridge Road. Legal description, part lot 23, concession 13, part 1, plan 21R 3357, Geographic Township of Dungannon, now town of Bancroft, Hastings County. Be it resolved that the Committee of Adjustment does hereby approve the minor variance application number MV0022021 to reduce the minimum gross floor area from 74.3 meters to 67.63 meters, to reduce the minimum front setback from 20 meters to 13.5 meters, subject to the conditions as determined by this committee. Can I have a mover and a seconder, please? Mayor Jenkins, on to Caulfield. Thank you. Any, Robin, I'll turn this over to you at that time.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Okay, so the subject lands, municipally known as 19 Pine Ridge Road, are designated as rural waterfront in the official plan, Part A, and are zoned rural residential zone. The lands are vacant with the exception of a small existing accessory structure. The property is approximately 1 acre in size with approximately 84 meters of frontage on Pine Ridge Road. At this time, the applicant is proposing to build a single detached dwelling with a gross floor area of 67.63 square meters. The zoning bylaw provides a minimum gross floor area in a dwelling unit of 74.3 square meters for a single detached dwelling. Therefore, the applicant is seeking relief from the minimum gross floor area of 74.3 square meters to 67.63 square meters, which is a variance of 6.67 square meters. In addition, the applicant is also seeking relief from the minimum front yard setback. The minimum front yard setback in the rural residential zone is 20 meters for a single detached dwelling. The applicant is proposing to reduce the front yard setback from 20 meters to 13.5 meters, which is a variance of 6.5 meters. Staff note that the property is bisected by a hydro corridor, which constrains development on the subject lands. In addition, the property falls within a Ministry of Transportation permit controlled area, which provides setbacks from provincial highways and intersections. I believe the applicant's exterior side yard falls along Highway 28 East. The applicant is currently in the process of obtaining a highway corridor management permit through MTO. So as we apply the 4 tests, the variance must be considered minor in nature. The variance is considered minor in nature as there are not any anticipated negative offsite impacts. The variance must be desirable for the development of the land. The proposed variance is appropriate and compatible with the adjacent existing land uses. The requested variance must satisfy the general intent of the official plan. The subject property, as aforementioned, is designated rural waterfront in Part A of the Hastings County Official Plan. This land use designation has been applied to those lands located outside any other land use designation identified in Land Use Designation Schedule OPA of the plan, and permits a range of uses as detailed in Part 5 of the plan, including low density residential uses. The type of structure is consistent with the surrounding land uses and therefore in conformity with the intent and purpose of the official plan. The requested variance must satisfy the general intent of the zoning bylaw. The subject lands are zoned rural residential in the zoning bylaw, and the applicant is requesting to reduce the minimum gross floor area and to reduce the required minimum front yard setback in order to facilitate the construction of a single detached dwelling. The reduction of the gross floor area for a single detached dwelling and the front yard setback meets the general intent and purpose of the zoning bylaw. Notice was given 10 days in advance of the meeting to everyone within 60 meters of the subject property, and the notice was posted on the subject lands. At this time, we have received 1 written submission in support of the application, which I believe I attached to the agenda. And is available for members of the committee to review. This application for minor variance is not subject to any other type of development application under the Planning Act. And that concludes my report. If anyone has any questions or would like me to read aloud the comments in support of the application.
Hearing none. Is there any verbal submissions? Oh, pardon me, from the agent. Would the agent like to talk, speak at this time? Applicant, sorry.
No, thank you. It was explained very well there. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. From the public, is there any verbal submissions at this time? Hearing none. We'll call for a vote on this application. On this motion. Carried. Thank you. Item D. Application number MV 003-2021. Applications TK Estrek, Civic address 73 Tate Lane, legal description part lot 2930. East Hastings Road, Lot 1, Plan M28, Geographic Township, Dungannon, now part of Town of Bancroft of Hastings. Be resolved that the Committee of Adjustment does hereby approve the minor variance application, minor application number MV 001-2021, to reduce the minimum frontage yard setback from 70.5 meters to 3.05 meters, subject to the conditions as determined by this committee. At this time, I would ask our planner to talk on this one.
You reading the right one there, Wayne?
I think so.
Okay.
D?
Yeah. What did you say the reduce the setback was?
From 7.5 to 3.05.
Okay, that's not what I've got on mine.
Okay.
There was an amendment made to the agenda today. It may be that you have a previous agenda. I'd be happy to read the resolution for you, Mr. Chairman, if you like.
Please do.
Okay. Be it resolved that the Committee of Adjustment does hereby approve of minor variance application number MV 003-2021 to reduce the setback from water courses and water bodies from 30 meters to 12.2 meters to permit an addition to an existing dwelling, and from 30 meters to 27.43 meters to permit the construction of a detached private garage, and that the application be subject to the following condition: that prior to the issuing of a building permit or permits, that the recommendations of the environmental impact statement and addendum to the environmental impact statement as prepared by Oak Ridge Environmental Limited be implemented to the satisfaction of the town of Bancroft to mitigate potential negative impacts to the surrounding water body and or water course, and any other conditions as determined by the committee.
Thank you. That's certainly definitely different than my motion.
That's the same one
Okay.
I got.
Well, I'm looking at, anyway, never mind. Do I have a mover and a seconder for that extended motion? Councillor Berry and Councillor Val. Okay, Robin, now would you like to now explain it, please? Thank you.
Certainly, Mr. Chairman. Okay, so the subject lands are approximately 41.8 acres and are located on the southwest side of Tate Lake. Access to the property is by way of a right-of-way over the private road known as Tate Lane. The applicant is currently proposing to construct an addition to the existing dwelling and a two-car detached private garage. A portion of the dwelling is to be demolished and replaced with a 98.4 meter addition, resulting in an additional 59.1 meter extension in total. The applicant is requesting relief from section 21.3.1A of the zoning bylaw, which is as follows. Water courses and water bodies, notwithstanding anything in this bylaw, no building structure or septic tank installation, including the weeping field, shall be located within 30 meters of the high water mark of a water body or permanent water course, notwithstanding that such water body or water course is not shown on any schedule forming part of this bylaw. The relief requested for the addition onto the existing dwelling is 12.2 meters, which is a variance of 17.8 meters. The relief requested is 27.43 meters for the proposed detached private garage, which is a variance of 2.57 meters. The applicant, in support of this application, the applicant was advised by staff to complete an environmental impact statement to justify the proposed reductions and to demonstrate that the proposed reduction in the 30 meter setback from a water course or water body would not negatively impact fish habitat or the ecological function of Tate Lake. The applicant retained the services of Oak Ridge Environmental Limited to complete an EIS to address the potential impacts associated with the proposed construction of the addition to the existing dwelling and the detached private garage. The EIS was completed in August of 2020 and maintained that the proposed development could proceed without adversely impacting the surrounding water bodies or water courses, provided that the recommendations in the environmental impact statement were implemented. There was also an addendum to the environmental impact statement, which was provided following comments from the town's peer review consultant, and to address the fact that the private garage was within the 30 meter setback, which previously had been indicated that it was going to be greater than 30 meters from the water body. Approval of this application will allow the property owner to use the existing dwelling on a year-round basis. There were a number of recommendations within the environmental impact statement, which are to be addressed and implemented in order to ensure that the water body is not negatively impacted. So as we apply the 4 tests, the application is minor in nature, as any anticipated negative offsite impacts can be mitigated by implementing the recommendations provided in the environmental impact statement and the addendum to the environmental impact statement. The variance must be desirable for the development of the land, building, or structure. The proposed variance is appropriate and compatible with the adjacent existing land uses and will allow the property owners to use the property on a year-round basis. The requested variance must satisfy the general intent of the official plan. The subject property is designated rural waterfront in Part A of the official plan. The land use designation has been applied to those lands located outside other land use designations identified in the land use designation schedule OPA and permits a range of uses, including low density residential uses. The proposed development is consistent with the surrounding land uses and in conformity with the intent and purpose of the official plan. In addition, section 4.2.43 of the Hastings County official plan maintains that new development and/or site alteration shall not be permitted in fish habitat except in accordance with provincial and federal requirements. New development or site alteration shall not be permitted on adjacent lands within 120 meters of fish habitat unless it has been determined in an approved environmental impact statement pursuant to Part A, Section 7.86 of the official plan that there will be no negative impacts on the natural features or the ecological functions of the watercourse or water body. As previously mentioned, an environmental impact statement was completed in support of the proposed development to justify the reduction in the 30-meter setback from watercourses and water bodies. The submitted environmental impact statement maintains that the proposed development may proceed without adversely impacting the surrounding water body, provided the recommendations of the environmental impact statement are implemented. In this regard, the requested reduction of the 30-meter setback from watercourses and water bodies meets the general intent and purpose of the official plan. The requested variance must also satisfy the general intent of the zoning bylaw. The subject property is zoned rural and with a small portion zoned environmental protection zone. The applicant is requesting permission to reduce the required 30-meter setback from a water body or water course to permit the addition to the existing dwelling and to permit the construction of a private detached garage. The purpose of the 30-meter setback of the high water mark of a water body or permanent water course is to protect water courses and water bodies from adverse impacts. The submitted environmental impact statement maintains that the proposed development may proceed without adversely impacting the surrounding water body, provided the recommendations of the environmental impact statement are implemented. In this regard, the requested reduction of the 30-meter setback from the water body meets the general intent of the zoning bylaw. There were no public comments received in support or opposition of the proposed application, and the subject lands are not subject of any other type of development under the Planning Act. I'm happy to take any questions from members of the committee at this time.
Mayor Jenkins?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The recommendations of the environmental impact statement, whose job is it to ensure that those are adhered to? Is it through the building inspector, or how does that work, Robin?
Yeah, likely that'll be through those recommendations will have to be met in order for building permits to be issued.
Okay, so they have to be checked out before the permit's issued.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions from anyone? Would the applicant like to speak at this time, if present? You're muted. You're on mute. There you
Is
go.
that better?
Now
Okay.
that's better.
No, Robin was very thorough. The environmental assessment also very thorough. We're very happy with how well we were taking care of helping us through those procedures. And Matt has ensured us that he will help us along the way to ensure that we stay true to all the recommendations that have been presented and we understand fully and are taking very seriously. Thank you.
Thank you very much. You stated there was no written public input. How about verbal? Do we have anyone here verbal that would like, public would like to make a verbal statement at this time? For or against? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote at this time then from the committee members. Those for? Carried. Thank you. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Even with the new resolution. All right, now I'm almost afraid to read this next one. Application MV 004 2021, applicants JM Lutz, civil address 808 Detler Road, legal description part lot 18, concession 8, geographic township of Dungannon, now the town of Bancroft, county of Hastings. Be it resolved that the Committee of Adjustment does hereby approve the minor variance application, application number MV 004 2021, to reduce the minimum front yard setback from 20 meters to 10.66 meters, subject to conditions as determined by this committee. Do I have a mover and a seconder? Barry McGibbon, Tracy McGibbon. Thank you very much. Robin, would you like to talk on this one?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Okay, the subject lands municipally known as 808 Detler Road are built out with a single detached dwelling. Under the official plan, they are designated as rural waterfront and are zoned rural zone. The property is approximately 1,345.25 square meters with approximately 50 meters of frontage on Detler Road. The applicant is proposing to build an addition onto the existing single detached dwelling. The applicant is therefore requesting relief from the minimum front yard setback of 20 meters to 10.66 meters, which is a difference of 9.34 meters. So as we apply the 4 tests, the variance is considered minor in nature and there are not any anticipated negative offsite impacts. Second test, it must be desirable. The proposed variance is appropriate and compatible with the adjacent existing land uses in that area. The requested variance must satisfy the general intent of the official plan. The subject property, as aforementioned, is designated rural waterfront in Part A of the Hastings County official plan and permits a range of uses, including low density residential uses. This type of structure is therefore consistent with the surrounding land uses and in conformity with the intent and purpose of the official plan. The minor variance must satisfy the general intent of the zoning bylaw. The subject property is zoned rural zone in the zoning bylaw, and the applicant is requesting permission to reduce the required minimum front yard setback in order to facilitate the construction of an addition to the existing detached dwelling. In this regard, the reduction of the front yard setback meets the general intent and purpose of the zoning bylaw. Notice was given in compliance with the Planning Act to everyone within 60 meters of the subject property and was also posted on the subject lands. At this time, no comments have been received in support or opposition to the proposed application, and the subject lands are not the subject of any other type of development application under the Planning Act. And I'd be happy to take any questions from members of the committee at this time.
Seeing none, is the applicant or would like to speak at this time if they're present? I don't believe one. Any written or submissions for or against from the public?
There were no written submissions received, Mr. Chairman.
Anyone present would like to make a verbal submission for or against this application? Hearing none, we'll proceed to the vote. Those in favor of the motion? Carried. Thank you. Okay. The last item on here, I would like to express my thanks to our planner, Robin Tate, for the work she put into these applications. It's a time-consuming job. Good job. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, could I ask
Yes?
Robin a question? Robin, why do we have to get into this environmental enforcement business when M&R is our conservation authority? Shouldn't they be looking after all this?
Because it is a regulation within our zoning bylaw, that and it's also within the Hastings County official plan, that the setback from a water course or water body should be 30 meters. In order to reduce that setback, there needs to be a justification, a professional justification provided to permit that setback and to ensure that there's no negative impact to the ecological function of the water body or water course.
Yeah, I know when we work in Crow River or the Quinte Conservation, they look after that and they enforce it. And M&R is our conservation authority. To me, it just seems they're shirking their responsibility and giving it to the municipality, which I think is wrong. But anyways, it's just a question.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Gary.
At this time, I would take a motion to adjourn. Resolution that the Committee of Adjustment does hereby adjourn at, I have it 3:49. Do I have a motion?